and they said, it's not looking good for you. This disease has a 30% chance of making it out. So for me to have to look into the eyes and tell them like I love them and that I'm sorry that I'm not going to make it, like it was terrifying for me.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode on Take a Pain Check. Today's guest has turned adversity into purpose, redefining what strength looks like for people living with chronic illness. At just 15, Zac could barely move due to his diagnosis, and now he empowers others to rebuild strength through adaptive fitness, lifting not just weights, but mindset. So, Zac, I'm really excited to have you on today's podcast episode. Can you give me a brief introduction about yourself? Tell me a little bit about your background, what you're up to professionally, and kind of what your interests are outside of work.
Absolutely. What an intro. I like that. So yeah, my name is Zac Spinosa. I'm 28 years old and I'm from the Niagara region here in Canada. And I was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis when I was 18. And for me, that meant I went from a relatively athletic kid playing both football and basketball. I was MVP of the school and of the teams, and as well as athlete of the year at the time, to not being able to walk and gaining a significant amount of weight through medications, unfortunately, and lack of movement due to all the pain I was going through with my arthritis. So that's how my origin of dealing with rheumatic disease was. And then from there, it kind of just snowballed into a bad spot. So I obviously was diagnosed and it just happened so fast. It felt like I started with rashes and to the point where I was so itchy. I was scratching every night, waking up with like blood on my arms just from the severity of how much I was itching throughout the night. And then that turned into wrist and hand pain to the point where I couldn't even button up my own clothes. I had to ask my parents to help me go to the bathroom and wash up. As a young teen, like you get bullied for being a little bit different. And for me, gaining a significant amount of weight and limping in school, being that I was an athletic guy, was kind of rough. So it kind of pushed me into a dark place where I let my disease consume me, and I ended up just wallowing away into my bedroom, playing video games and hiding away from the world and hiding away from any way of getting better in general, besides waiting on doctors and medications to do it for me.
I think a lot of what comes with the disease, especially growing up like with arthritis, because I was also diagnosed as a teen with the JIA, so I understand pretty similar what it's like. At least I found it really difficult, and I did also experience bullying and what people had to say at that point. Did you feel like you knew pretty well on how to explain your condition to other people at that time?
No, like absolutely not. Like I've always been kind of like a clown in a sense of like off the cuff with jokes and such, and I wasn't able to make it make sense to anybody. I'd be like, "Oh, I have arthritis." Like if you crack your hands too much. Like I wasn't educated on the disease whatsoever, especially at 15. And as you know, of course, Natasha, like it's an invisible disease that no one else can see, and you can't even really see it. Like besides if it's a significant amount of swelling, right? So for me, besides being like kind of bloated looking. Outside of that, there was no evidence of anything other than I was just like a fat kid, right? Like that's kind of what it looked like. And that's a struggle in itself, let alone the pain that it had on your body with the arthritis and then the mental side of it. So I had no idea how to express what I was feeling to the point where I lost all of my friends. Like I had nobody in my life anymore but my family. And that was obviously very tough at the time.
So when was the point in your journey when your caregivers were like, okay, Zac, you need to go see a healthcare professional, or was it someone else?
For me, like my parents were like very active in it. They didn't want to see me in pain. So within like a month of me getting these rashes, it was like, all right, let's get you right to your family doctor. Let's figure it out. And I had a great doctor growing up. I don't know if they'd be called a pediatrician in a sense. Is that what they'd be called? But he was fantastic. And he right away sent me to get a bunch of different tests for allergens and everything you could think of. And it came up that my CRP levels were pretty high. So he basically diagnosed me with arthritis of some sorts. But he said, I think it's time for you to see a specialist, a rheumatologist in McMaster. So I was 15 years old. And I believe that was about 2 or 3 months before my 16th birthday. So it would have been like March or something. I don't even know what the year that is. I'm so old now.
within a month, I was referred to sick kids because of my family doctor. And I think people that don't have access to primary care physicians or like pediatricians, they might have a longer time to then get diagnosed.
Absolutely. And honestly, like I come from a pretty like tough family and I'm a relatively, I don't want to sound weird, but I'm a pretty tough guy. And I was playing sports and very physical to the point where of course you're gonna get hurt. You're bumping into people, you're hitting people on football, you're getting hit. For me, so I had all these pains all the time for like 2 or 3 years at this point, and I didn't really chalk it up to anything other than growing pains because they weren't severe enough to the point where I couldn't walk. But I remember trying on shoes and I was like size 12 shoe, and then I was size 12 and a half. But now I wear size 11. So it's like, wait, was I actually a size 12? No, I was probably just so swollen because I wasn't having my disease under control. Which, thinking about this, I'm just telling you now, like that's kind of crazy that there's all these signs that we don't have. And obviously 10 plus years ago, like the research was not there and the knowledge was not there on this disease. So I had no clue what was going on, right?
Yeah. Same with the
Yeah,
shoe
it's
size.
crazy.
Like I relate to that a lot because my shoe size also increased when my feet were super inflamed, and I was just like, you don't think that that's gonna happen when you ever
Oh no.
you're like, well, why is my shoe getting tighter? And it's like because of the inflammation, and like now it's gotten down, so I'm like, okay, now I'm actually like a size 9 and not a size 10 and a half.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so, yeah, it's interesting. And then, have you ever thought it was like because of a sports injury or being too active or anything like that that caused your arthritis in any way? Like, did you ever have those thoughts?
I don't definitely had the thoughts. Do I have them now? No, but I definitely at the time was like, what did I do? Like I even blamed myself. Like, did I do something bad? Was I mean to people? Like, because you're a kid, you don't really understand anything, right? And like obviously people believe in karma and such, and maybe it's real, maybe it's not. But like for me, I was like, man, I don't think I was that mean to anybody. I don't think I was a bad guy. Like I don't deserve this. And it was just so scary, right? And luckily for a lot of the kids out there, there's people like both of you and I and so many other people that are advocating for the disease that now there's a lot more understanding. Not enough, but there's definitely more now, right? It can only get better from here. But yeah, when I got diagnosed with it quickly into sick kids, shifted and right away I was put on a medical program in a sense and definitely was not very effective. The disease continued to get worse and worse and worse. And the medications I was taking were not very beneficial for me. And unfortunately, that caused fusion in my wrists where I was unable to bend my wrist past like 30 degrees. And so doing like push ups and such, I have to do them on my knuckles. And just like my ability and my whole identity, which was being an athlete, was just stripped away from me. And it took about like a year and a half before I even had any sort of like self worth and like self being again for me, right? So that was a really rough time in my life. Almost like we're gonna get to it obviously with my other severe case of health. But it was in my mind now probably worse than what I experienced when I nearly died. And that's probably because I was so young and scared and not understanding that there's anything that I could be doing about it, right? So, which is crazy because it was nowhere near as bad as the other thing. But when you're mentally equipped for things, it's a lot easier to deal with them. So,
What was your medication journey like growing up with
mhm.
SJIA?
So I started off with like a very high dose of prednisone. I believe it was 85 milligrams at the time. Then we went up to about a 105 dose, which is very high, and that caused me to have significant weight gain. And unfortunately, I had no clue any of the side effects of prednisone, like bone density breaking down, teeth going bad, eyes going bad, as well as like the protein synthesis levels reduced by about 35%. So I had no idea how to combat the issues that come with the medication. Now, granted, did it reduce the pain? Absolutely, and it did help there, but it wasn't enough to the point where I was pain free. Like I was still in tears at least 1 to 2 nights a week where I couldn't even move and just screaming, like having a sheet laying on top of me hurt. Right, so that was tough. And then I started on injections, which was for me it was methotrexate for about 6 months, and it did absolutely nothing for me. My skin started to tinge yellow a little bit. So we went off of that, and I believe I went on Enbrel, which was an auto injection, and that was, I believe that's a biologic. And I did that for a little while, and unfortunately, it didn't work as well. And then I met my adult care rheumatologist, which was when I was about 17 and a half, I believe. And at that point, I was going back and forth from Niagara to Hamilton like 2 days a week, and it was a lot. I wasn't getting better. I was gaining weight. I was almost 300 pounds at this point, and I was just such in a dark spot. And I met my rheumatologist. I'll give him a shout out because it's a positive thing. Saeed Sheikh, he's an incredible rheumatologist, and my parents were so supportive of my family, but he was such a good influence on me because I see this guy walk into an office, very confident, in incredible shape, and he said to me, "It's going to be all right. We're going to find something that's going to work, but not only are we going to find the medication that's going to work, we're going to find something in you to help you work again to make things better." So he basically was saying, it's not just my job and the medication's job to get better, but it's time for you to take ownership over it because you're becoming an adult, you're becoming a man. It's time for you to take ownership over this disease, right? And I was so grateful for this because he also was somebody who suffered with arthritis growing up. So it was cool to see somebody who understands it, but also somebody who's in great shape. And within, I believe 6 weeks of working with him, I was on Actemra. It was a monthly infusion I did. And I would say for me, within about 6 to 8 weeks, I was feeling pretty good. Not pain-free by any means, but from like a 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 every day to like a 3 to 4 out of 10 in pain, maybe even a 5 to 6. But it was enough for me to have a little bit of hope again, right? And at this point, I was playing video games professionally with some guys down in California. And my dad thought it would be a good idea for me to get out of my environment, which I kind of just like wallowed in, which was my room and just in darkness. And although I made friends on the internet to play games with, I never had a change of like mindset because I was stuck in this room. So my friends who were 5 years older than me, so they would have been like 23 or 24, they said, "Hey, why don't you come to California?" Obviously the climate's a little bit better than here in Canada. And I was feeling good enough to walk again. And my dad sent me on a flight. I went down there. Obviously a very risky move in a sense, if you think about it, if you're scared of like strangers and stuff. But I went down there, stayed with these guys for a week, and I almost forgot that I had arthritis. Probably not that it wasn't there, but I was so happy to like feel myself again and be in this nice weather. And this was for New Year's, funny enough. And I spent a week with these guys. And when I was leaving, they said, "Hey, by the way, we're not going to play games with you anymore unless you start lifting weights." Because that was the deal my dad made with them. It was kind of like a manipulation thing, but it was a good one. So I wasn't going to lose my only friends. Came home, I started lifting weights, and literally after day one, I was like, "What the hell did I wait so long for?" Even though like it hurt and it was painful, I created that pain and I created that hard work, that it was a choice this time. Instead of waking up in pain and sitting there and dealing with it, I was able to like actually create growth through pain that I chose rather than it choosing me to be the one delivering the pain to. So it was like so empowering for me, both physically and mentally. And that's how I got into fitness.
So would you say your rheumatologist was supportive during this time? Like, or did you tell your rheumatologist that you were lifting weights and like,
Oh, absolutely.
like how
Yeah.
did you go about being in pain and doing that? Because I feel like a lot of people are afraid of doing certain things because they're like, oh, I might be in pain or this might happen.
Understandable. So this might sound a little blunt, but if you're a person who's suffering from rheumatic disease that causes chronic pain, you're going to be in pain. It's not going to go away, unfortunately, not completely. So you have to decide, are you going to be a victim to this pain, or are you going to make the pain a victim to you? So I decided, with obviously support of my rheumatologist and my family, that I was no longer going to wait for things to get better. I was going to do what I can to make things better on my own. And although it hurt less each time, right? Even if you're a person who doesn't have chronic pain or arthritis or anything like that, if you go to the gym, it's going to hurt. Like it's going to hurt, especially day one. And that's why most people quit. But then you show up on day two and it hurts just a little bit less. And then day three, it hurts a little bit less. And then eventually you're like, oh, like when I get out of bed, my back doesn't hurt as bad. This goes way beyond arthritis and chronic pain. It's a compounding interest that is very beneficial, and it will bleed into your old age as well. So for me, it was like being so swallowed by my disease and the depression that it caused, to have any sort of light that I could create myself through my own work, it was like a no-brainer to keep going with it. And it was just 6 months later, I'm down 25, 35 pounds. I'm like, whoa, like my joints hurt less. My, like I have more energy. I feel more confident. People aren't looking at me as weird. And it just made me feel so much better. And then fast forward a year and a half later, I'm like, oh, I'm not afraid to go to the beach to take my shirt off, which I know that's not being like having a nice physique. It's great and that's cool, but that wasn't what it was about. It was the fact that I felt confident enough to be myself fully again, right? Because this disease completely took that away from me. And that's the worst part about it. It took away my identity. And then 2, 3 years later, I'm feeling amazing. Now people are coming to me like, man, like you were crippled, like you couldn't walk, like you were completely disabled. Like, how did you do it? And it was as simple as I made a plan, I showed up and I continued, and I had great support. Like my family was all in for it. There was many times where my mom especially would be like, you need to slow down, like you're going to hurt yourself. I'm like, I'm choosing this pain. I was a little crazy and intense about it. But my rheumatologist was like um, so for it. And every single time I came in for my infusion, which was once a month, he'd come in and he'd give me a fist bump. He's like, you're looking great, man. You feeling good? You feeling better? How's your pain? And I would lie. I would be like, I have no pain anymore. It's gone. And I almost convinced myself that I didn't have arthritis anymore, which obviously that wasn't true, but it was a better mindset than all I have is arthritis and I have nothing else, right? Like that's kind of like, it was like a radical delusional thinking that was very beneficial in a sense.
Yeah, so it's kind of changing your mindset to allow you to do the things that you used to do. And I mean, it's great that you've been able to accomplish so much. And like you kind of mentioned, people are now coming to you for
Mhm.
support and advice and to get started. So can you talk a little bit about how that all started? Like, how did you kind of turn your journey into something where now you can help others, and talk a little bit about your platform?
Absolutely. So for me, I was in a family business. My dad owned a bakery, and I would be in the public eye of customer service in sense of a sense. And every Saturday there was a farmers market in my town, and I would go there, and people saw me from being healthy to being overweight and completely sick and crippled and with a walker to all of a sudden this guy who's in good shape. And they would come to me like, hey, my mom, she's struggling with MS and she's struggling, or my aunt's struggling with arthritis. Like, is there any tips? And I would say, okay, yeah, here, like I could help you out with a little plan. Have her come see me, and I would talk. And literally just by having a conversation with these people and telling them my own journey, they would feel like a glimpse of hope and inspiration. And 2 weeks later, like, hey, I've been walking every single day since I talked to you, and I feel so much better. And I'm like, that's so cool, right? That's so nice. And it made me feel really good. Like it was like an addiction almost. Like I wanted to just like keep helping people. And maybe at that time it was because it made me feel really good to help people. That's why I wanted to do it. But then eventually it was like, oh man, I'm actually good at this. Like I'm good at giving people inspiration. I'm good at allowing people to take back their own movement in their own life, right? So for me, it was just a build up over time. And then eventually, my dad had said to me, hey, why don't you take the storage area of the bakery, and we can turn it into a little gym and you can start a training business. I said, okay, sure. I've been working since I was like 15 years old, like legitimately, and I had some money saved up, and I purchased a bunch of equipment without knowing anything about running a gym or running a personal training business. And within weeks, I was fully booked, and I completely undervalued the service. So I had no idea about that. So I had a lot of people signing up because it was so cheap. And out of nowhere, I was helping 20 to 30 different people get healthy. And it was so amazing. And that's evolved into so much more now. But that's how it started.
That's amazing. And I'm glad that people are now coming to you for support and like mentorship and even just hope. Because, like you were saying, it's just hearing people's stories that make other people
Mm-hmm.
just feel like they could do something out of their life. And like that's also the purpose of this podcast, is to bring people like you to share your story so people feel inspired and feel like, despite my illness, I'm able to do something. Because I find like oftentimes, even myself growing up, I was like, okay, I have this disease, I won't be able to do anything with my life. Like my life
Yeah,
is,
absolutely.
which is not true. Like we've done so
No, I know.
much despite our condition, but like when you're at
Yeah.
a point, you're like, oh, my life is over.
Yeah, it's the mindset that really, really matters. And if I could go back and talk to myself when I was 15, it'd be like, man, there's way worse things that could be going on. And like, that's what my dad would echo every single day. He's like, I know this sucks and I hate that you're going through this, but there's people who are stuck in a wheelchair. There's people who are dealing with like stage 4 cancer. As much as what you're going through sucks, it could be worse. So just be grateful that you're still here and you have the choice to do something about it. Right. So I wish I would have listened earlier, but now, like, over the past year, especially, I've really taken it seriously about being an advocate for this disease. And I didn't want to make it my identity. So I kind of stayed away from doing these types of things for a while, which was silly of me. And I regret that. It's like one of my only regrets in life. But it's because I was afraid of making it my identity and leaning into it and basically labeling myself as disabled. And now my voice is powerful. My story is powerful. And I should be doing things like this and helping people. And I'm glad that I'm doing that now. And it's been incredible. We had the Take a Pain Check event was incredible. And I've met so many nice people. I actually have a young lady from the event coming down to see me from Toronto this weekend. And we're going to go through some movement and we're just going to see how her body works. And I'm going to develop a plan for her. And then I'm sure you remember Daniel, the little legend.
Yeah.
He's going to be coming down to see me. I heard from his mom and it was just so nice. But listening to the story I was telling, he went back to karate. So it's like, that's so cool to know that literally just by telling my story and sharing my opinion and my thoughts on this kid has taken action into his own life to get better. And his story was insane. And it's so touching to know that even with having, an illness and a disability, your life can have so much more purpose because of it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so grateful that I got sick in general and that I got diagnosed with this disease, because I probably would just be doing something mediocre with my life, and that's fine. But I've always wanted to have a big purpose in life and leave a legacy behind. And because of pain and triumphing through it, I'm able to do something really special to help so many people out there. Right. So it's just a grateful experience.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm glad that people were interested in even like checking what you do out and like also being like willing, because I feel like you can hear someone's story, but then like the second step is actually reaching out and trying to
Yeah.
help. And like it takes a lot of courage. So like that's
Of
amazing for
course.
people to be able to do that. And like it's amazing that you're able to coordinate all this too. So that's so nice. Can you talk a little bit about like why someone would go to your gym versus other gyms, or like what do you
Yeah.
offer? What do other gyms offer? Like when people just want to get started, what should they do?
Absolutely. So I'll start with this. Like, I don't want to take anyone away and say, like, oh, we're so much better than everyone else. This and this. If you have a gym available to you, go use it. Like, that's where I want to start, because overall, my gym is not special. What's special is what you can do within it. Right. So, my team's incredible. I've trained them very, very well, and I've learned from the best in the world for when it comes to strength training. And I'm very blessed for that. But what we do a little bit different around here is we focus so much on movement literacy, right? The ability to move and how the individual moves in itself, right? So Natasha, you and I are obviously completely different heights, right? We're a different gender, we're a different race, and that completely changes our structure and our anatomy. So if I told you to squat like me, you'd probably fall on your butt. If I squatted like you, I might fall on my face, right? So you have to look at things a little bit differently. And because of the perspective I have with pain, and mobility restrictions from fusion and such, I've been able to adapt a practice and a protocol that is a lot more fine-tuned to the individual, right? So when I've had quite a few people with arthritis, especially from the Toronto area, come down to see me for just a one-time movement literacy assessment. And with that, there's 4 fundamental movement patterns that are very important to the human body, and those are a squatting motion, a hinging or a bend motion, a push, and a pull. And the push and pull are pretty simple for most people unless they're struggling with shoulder issues, which I don't find a lot of people with arthritis have a lot of shoulder problems. It tends to be wrists, ankles, hips, right? Knees especially. So the push and pull are pretty simple, but squat and the hinge, that's where we run into a lot of issues, because especially people who have arthritis in the spine, bending over and squatting can be very, very difficult. But what they might not realize is not that they can't do it, it's the way that they're doing it is incorrect. So when they come to see me, I'm able to really break it down. And I think what makes it special is the story that I have and the experience that I have, which allows people to have a little bit more trust and belief in the process, because I can show video and photo evidence of who I was before this, before I became who I am now. And it allows them to take their guard down, because a lot of people are so afraid of getting hurt, understandably so, that they block the ability to actually get better. Right. So that's why I think Forge has become something so special. And because my team is very, very much involved in this arthritis side of our business, they've been very keen on learning as much as possible, because I'm only one person. And if I only focus on helping one person at a time, I'm not going to help nearly as many people as I could. So I'm training my team up to understand everything about chronic disease, chronic illness, and how to work with people with these diseases in a sense. And now they're able to take on more of a workload, and we can make it way more price achievable, right? Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, fitness is not covered by healthcare, right? And as much as I disagree with that, I don't think that's going to change. So I want to try to streamline fitness programs to people who have chronic illness, tailored to what they need at the lowest possible price that we can, because money is the root of all evil, unfortunately, but it is something that is there, right? So we need to find a way to make it easier and more accessible to people. So right now, personally, I'm developing a whole free at-home guide for fitness for people to give away to them, because it's start with that. And if you can get through that, then we can talk about making a nice program to do at a gym, right?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, at least for me, I find it really hard to even be motivated to do any of this. And I'm just like, I find that like doing it with other people or seeing other people do it makes me motivated. Like I'm not gonna like take myself to a gym, which is so bad, because I'm like, and my mom's always like, you need to start moving. You need to do this like after the event. She's like, you need to sign up with Zac.
We can talk. So this is outside of the podcast. We can have a call together, and I'll set you up with something.
She was like, and I was just like, I feel like I've always heard like you need to move, you need to like exercise, but I'm like, I just like don't know what's the best way to do it. I don't want to like hurt myself. And I also just need to, I always have excuses, like literally.
Yeah, of course. And that's what it is. Listen, I'm keeping it PG on the podcast, but working with me is a little bit more off the cuff and a little bit more intense. Obviously, it's not like a scary thing, but it's more like, listen, like this is a real issue and we need to solve it. So how can we do that? And we can talk about that obviously outside of here. But this movement thing, man, like it is incredible. And even for me, like I'm in powerlifting currently, and that's the sport that I've chosen. And that is probably not the smartest idea when it comes to joint loading, because it's the heaviest loading that you can do. And also, I'm a pretty tall guy. So for me to compete at a high level, I need to be very, very much overweight. So I don't want to do that. When I pushed myself up to like 250 pounds for me, my joints started hurting really, really bad. And that was about 3 weeks before the event. I think that's where I was at. And now I'm down to like 226. So I'm like 25 pounds down in like 6 weeks. And my joints feel significantly better. So like not only the movement is important, but the overall structure of our bodies also affects this disease, right? And I know obviously we're in a body positive world, and that's great. And I think that's awesome, but it's not realistic to a health positive world, right? So if we want to be healthy, and we want to, especially people with inflammatory diseases, we need to reduce inflammation, and we can start with a little bit of weight loss. And that doesn't mean you have to be like skinny and whatever. And it just means we have to be a little bit more understanding of the importance of our overall body composition in a sense, right? And it's not even just like adipose tissue, fat, if you don't know what that is. I know you do, you're super smart, but not everybody knows that stuff. But muscle is so, so important, right? Like there's been incredible studies on people who are morbidly obese. They did this, I believe, in the UK, and they did it on like hundreds of thousands of people. And people who were morbidly obese, who worked out literally 30 minutes on weights twice a week versus people who didn't, reduced their all-cause mortality by 50%. That's an insane amount just from an hour of weightlifting a week, right? So imagine what that could do for something just like arthritis or lupus, right? It can help so much with our disease, right? That's why I'm so passionate about this stuff.
When you go to the doctor's office, their first thing is not nutrition or exercise or lifestyle changes. It's like, let's give you the medication that reduces your inflammation. And then so like a lot of people just kind of like go with that because they're like, okay, this is what I can do. And there's some people that explore other avenues. So, have you had like rheumatologists or have you heard of patients that have gone to their doctors and like mentioned exercising? Like, has that ever been a concern, like lifting for like other rheumatologists or
I'm very, very lucky. So I don't know if you remember Dr. Matzos, obviously, but he came up to me after I spoke and he asked me who my rheumatologist was by name. He's like, "Is this your rheumatologist?" And I said, "Yes." "How do you know it?" And he actually worked under him, and I don't know what it's called, but like one of his preemptive before he became a full-on rheumatologist. And he was like, it sounded just like him the way you're talking, and he's like, just looking at you, I knew that you worked with your rheumatologist. And because Saeed is very, very much involved in longevity and health and healthcare, and he actually started a business which is all about longevity outside of rheumatology. My doctor's jacked. Like he makes me look like a wimp, right? And which is awesome. And it's not awesome. I shouldn't even said that. He's gonna love that. But he's very rare, right? So how do we change that perspective on things? Do we create a manual to help people with rheumatic diseases on exercise and on take home, like just pamphlets? Or we live in a paperless world. Just send out emails. It's free. ChatGPT is incredible, right? Just use it. And like that's what I'm trying to do is create a healthcare protocol that's preventative for these diseases, or a shield in a sense, or an armor through strength training, which is your muscle. How do we get that out to people? How do we get it to the doctors for them to understand? The Unity through Rheumatic Disease event is exactly the step towards doing that, right? Obviously, that's something I talk about passionately. And quite a few of the doctors came up to me and emailed me and talked to me about it afterwards too. Like, how do you think we can communicate better in our hospital to our patients? And for them, they have their licenses on the line a lot of the time. So advocating for some of this stuff is kind of against their code of ethics, which is unfortunate. So we can't really put the emphasis on them, but societies like the Arthritis Society, and there's so many other rheumatic disease societies out there, they're the ones who need to be taking the steps forward to pushing that out there. I'm just a guy from Fenwick, Ontario. I'm nobody special, but I don't have a big enough name to do as much as I could. And that's what I'm trying to develop, is building that reputation to help people understand it. But do we get in the rooms with the right people and get them to start putting this out there? How do we create a healthier society? We inform it more. We give it more information. We allow it to understand things better, right? So that's the fight that we have. But I don't have the answer on how to do that. I just know what we need to do.
I mean, that makes sense. Like giving it to people who are already advocates and have more of a name to advocate more for it and then raise more awareness about it. Like if I knew about this protocol and like doctors didn't have to like actually go through it, but if it was like, here's a resource that you can look into, like as simple as that, like that would be one
Yeah,
thing that my parents would be like on top of me to like look at as a pediatric
absolutely.
patient. You know what I mean?
And not everyone's going to do that, right? And at the end of the day, we can't help everyone. We can't save everybody. But if we can give them the information to save themselves, that's enough in my books, right? At the end of the day, it's up to Natasha to take care of Natasha. It's up to me to take care of me, right? So um, there's some work to be done, obviously. And I've gone full tilt into this now. Like I'm very much involved in trying to figure this out. I wish I had a bigger team on this side of my business to help me with, but unfortunately it doesn't make any money. So, and you know, it's like getting volunteers. It's hard, right? This is all outside of our own time that we're doing this to help people. And it's kind of crappy that it's up to like volunteers to figure this out, right? Because people should figure it out. But I'm not trying to get into any kind of conspiracy type of stuff, but it's just like, it's scary, you know what I mean? Like,
Not only do you have rheumatoid arthritis or
yeah,
arthritis, you also had another condition, and I feel like we didn't talk about that, and that also shaped your journey. So can you talk a little bit about that as well and what that was?
yeah,
It was a
for
big swing.
sure. So it's something called macrophage activation syndrome, which is an incredibly rare subcategory disease of rheumatic diseases in general, that can be flared up by things like foreign antibodies and just bad luck and stress and things like that. I don't tend to be a very stressed out person by any means, and there wasn't anything that in particular that should have caused this, but shortly after I was vaccinated, I flared up with a very bad amount of arthritis. So I had been completely medication and arthritis free for over 2 years at this point. This was in 2021, in August of 2021. And about a week after I was given my dose of the vaccine, my arthritis flared up very bad. And there's a lot of studies coming out showing that it would take out dormant issues now. So that's not shocking now that in hindsight. But from that, that also put me into a place where I'm opening a new part of my business. I'm very busy. I don't think I can just overcome this by being mentally tough. I think I might need to go back on my medication, which was what happened. After going back on my medication, my arthritis flare dissipated within 3 weeks. I was back to business as usual, lifting heavy weights. I hit a PR on my deadlift of 550 pounds. I was very excited. And then 2 days later, I was in a hospital bed fighting for my life. So I woke up in the morning, completely soaked in sweat. My bed was drenched, and I was about 11 pounds lighter than I was the night before. And so I was rushed to the hospital, went in, put on fluids, no idea what was happening. Look in the mirror, and I'm like, wow, I look a little bit like Homer Simpson right now. Why am I still yellow? And it turned out I was jaundiced, and my liver was failing. At this point, we didn't realize that my kidneys were failing as well, but that was happening. And this was all out of absolutely nowhere. I was in my hometown hospital for a while, which they were great, but they were not equipped for what I was going through. So after being in ICU for about a week, my doctor and the doctors at the hospital were very much, my rheumatologist actually, who was a great friend of mine, he saved my life by advocating for me to be sent to a hospital in Toronto where there was a lot more specialists. And after 2.5 weeks down here, getting poked and prodded, bleeding out of almost every orifice in my body, I was rushed in an ambulance to Toronto Hospital, where during COVID, unfortunately, so I couldn't have very many visitors. I just had my mom with me, so she was my rock while I was there. I was in bed, and I went into the hospital at 205 pounds, relatively muscular. To within 3.5 weeks, I was down to about 128 pounds. That was the last time they weighed me because they couldn't get me out of bed anymore because I was too weak to stand. And uh, I went from being on top of the world physically, business wise, every part of my life was amazing, to being stuck in bed, scared, completely lost as to what was going on, no clue what it was. At this point, I was not diagnosed with that MAS. I was just lost, dying. And I remember my dad was able to come visit me, and one of the nurses and one of the doctors came to see me before he came and said, we shouldn't be telling you this, obviously, but I was very kind and joking with the nurses the whole time. So I was getting definitely treated pretty well. And they said, I know it's the first time you saw your dad in a long time, but it's not looking good for you. And if we're being honest with you, you should probably tell them some things if you have anything that you want to say, because this disease has a 30% chance of making it out. So obviously that was really scary. And my dad was like my biggest inspiration in life. So for me to have to look him in the eyes and tell him like I love him and that I'm sorry that I'm not going to make it, like it was terrifying for me. So I said goodbye to him, and he was not happy about that. He didn't like that much at all. And he'd tell me you're going to be fine, everything's okay. And I said, I don't care. I understand that that's what I want, but if I don't make it, I need you to tell my family that I love them and that I try my best to fight this, because it was bad. It was really bad. And luckily for me, about 5 or 6 days later after that day, they were able to diagnose it. There was 13 different doctors from all different wards of the hospital working on me, and one pulled up a random case and said, "This kind of looks like this. Like, let's test for it." Found out that's what it was. They started treatment. Within a week, had some energy back, and the physios came into the hospital room with me, and we're like, "Oh, we're gonna make you walk with a walker." And just from like maybe PTSD or something, I didn't want to walk with a walker, and I said, "Get that thing away from me." I swore quite a bit, and I said, "I'm a strength specialist. I don't need your help. Get out of my way. I'll figure this out." And stupid of me, I grabbed my mom's shoulder. I said, "Let's go. Let's walk." And I said, "Take me to the stairs." My mom took me to the stairs, which was not well advised by any means, but I'm pretty stubborn and tenacious, I'd like to say. And I said, we're going to do 3 sets of a flight up the flight of stairs. And we went up and we walked down. I take a minute or two rest, up and back down. This is the first day I walked in 3 weeks. And after that, every day I'd get up and move. But I always had to have, obviously, a person with me. So for me, it was just absolutely terrifying. But once I realized I was going to make it out, I was not going to wait. It was not going to take 3 years to get my health back like I was told. I was going to move and put as much effort in, um, no matter what. So I did that. And after about a week and a half, 2 weeks of being treated, I was sent home. After about 6.5 weeks in the hospital, I was sent home to my mom's house. Obviously, I needed a caregiver at that point, and I started lifting weights the next morning in the basement. There's some crazy videos. I'm sure you've probably seen it with a little fluffy dog where I'm lifting little weights, and my arms are like almost the size of my pinky. And after one day of doing that in the basement, I'm like, take me to my gym. I want to be in my gym. And my one of my best friends, Chris, who works for me, he's just like, dude, you should not be here. Like, go home, rest. And I just kept pushing, kept moving. And there was definitely a few times where I did some crazy stuff. I tried to push myself to get back to where I was at, chasing something that I didn't need to chase. But through that, um, I went through some weird mental things for me because I was on such high doses of medication. I was hallucinating a lot during the hospital. I was hallucinating when I went home. And after 6 months, I got myself up to a very, very good spot health wise. And because I was on high dose of prednisone again, I didn't know that my appendix had burst. So I was walking around with a burst appendix that luckily had an abscess stopping the infection from spreading. But I had to get surgery on that. And once again, it was like, okay, we got to get back rolling again. We have to overcome this. How do we do that? And honestly, it was just, what did I do the first time? It was, I started moving and I moved more and more each day. And I just got better day by day by day. And if you can improve by 1% a day, you're improving 365% over a year, right? So it was just doing that over and over again, being stubborn and not allowing myself to give up and believing that I have a higher purpose than just rotting away. So for me, mentally, I was in such a better spot, even though that was way harder and way scarier than being diagnosed with arthritis in hindsight. My mindset, because of what I built leading up to this, was so much stronger than who I was when I first got diagnosed that it was like, as much as this sucks, I'm going to get through it. So luckily for me, I kept pushing and now I'm here today, basically pain free. Um, my rheumatologist doesn't kill me, but I haven't taken any medications in over 4 months, and my blood work is coming back spot on. So everything's good there, and I've been feeling amazing. My business is doing well, and now I'm able to show people that you can, through good choices and good habits, overcome pretty much anything, which is pretty cool.
That's amazing. And you've been through so much. You are definitely inspiring to a lot of people living with rheumatic diseases and beyond. So, if someone listening today is at rock bottom, what would you want them to know?
Man, might sound corny, but like just don't give up hope. Like don't give up belief. And like you need it. You need to believe that you're going to get better. If you allow yourself to believe that you're done and you're like cooked, like you're going to wither away into nothing. So you have to believe that you can get better, and you have to understand that it's not going to always be easy. It might never be easy, but having the choice to do something is always going to be better than the choice to do nothing. So you have to choose each day that you're going to fight and you're going to push back, because autoimmune diseases never stop. They never stop fighting. So you can't just sit on defense and wait for things to get better, because it's going to be a nonstop assault. So you need to keep fighting and pushing forward and just work on getting better day by day. That's about it.
What legacy do you want your fitness, your gym to leave for others?
Man, legacy is like so big to me, and it only gets bigger every year that goes by. Like I want to, I want to help a lot of people. Like I'm working on writing a book right now on how to overcome these things, and like I'm not even like a very well educated. I have a high school education, you know what I mean? And I did, and I was not a very literate guy. I only started reading books when I was like 21, and I want to do something that can leave a mark on this world that actually helps. Like it really changes people's lives, right? And more than anything, I want to change how society looks at health and living their lives, because we live in this fast world that everything's just material. Everything is just, I want the next best thing. And then you go look in the mirror and you're missing something. You're missing a purpose. You're missing a soul. And being healthy and being in control is probably the most valuable thing in life, is being healthy and being in control, because it bleeds into every part of your life, your family, your relationships, your work life. It just makes you so much more positive. And like, I wish even people who don't have this disease could feel how good it feels to be in charge of your own life and your own well-being, you know, like, so getting the tools out there for people to have freedom of pain, freedom of choice, and freedom of health is all I want to leave behind. And I want to be known for as a person who's a cornerstone of pushing health forward in the future, and simplifying it and not rushing to every drug to change things. Like, take action, right? It's huge. That's what I want to do.
And then you were recently part of our in-person event on the
Mhm.
patient panel. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences and maybe some key takeaways you took from other people, or even things that you shared yourself that you want people to take away from that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like, I thought it was really refreshing to hear from the doctor's perspective, to be honest with you, because I've only been a patient, and to hear how they know, like, they're aware that it's not a perfect system. They're aware that not everything that they're doing is the highest beneficial thing, but they're doing what they can and they're trying to make it better. And every person in that room was actively trying to make a better system for the next people that are going to be dealing with this. So for me, it was just like, it was really cool to see people actually care and want to do things differently. Being open to change is a way more powerful thing than people can realize, because a lot of people are just stuck in their ways, and I can be that way sometimes too. I don't know how much everybody else received, but I received well over 15, 20 emails and messages on Instagram from people that have attended the event, about better ways to take care of themselves and mindset changes. And that was just so cool to know that, just like a non-educated guy can go out there. Like, obviously, I'm non-traditional educated guy. You can go out there and change people's minds and give them a different light of thinking. And what you've created has been amazing, because, like, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think I was going to fit the vibe, because I'm a little loud, I'm aggressive, I'm intense. And like, when we talked the first time, it's like, oh man, this girl is not going to have me speak at her event. There's no way. But obviously, you and I are different types of people, and we have a different approach to things, but you're so open-minded. You ask such good questions. You genuinely care, and you want to push this narrative of helping people. And I have nothing but respect for you and what you've done with this foundation. So that's why I was asking if there's going to be another one, because I would love to be a part of it. But if I could help be a part of it, or even we could connect with people who have some funding to make it easier for you, that would be amazing. Because I think I've been to quite a few different events over the past year, especially, and this was one of the ones that hit me the hardest in my heart, because it was bringing people who are actually a part of this disease day in and day out to life. And I think you can make a big change with your foundation. So thank you for having me, and thank you for having me a part of it.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully soon, and you'll definitely be part of the next one. Lots of planning, as I was
Yeah,
mentioning.
of course. Yeah,
Uh,
it's crazy.
I feel like we both saw the impact, like the fact that people were messaging you afterwards, and also us,
Yeah.
like they were connecting with speakers and members of the community, and that just shows like the power of connection and community and how much that can do for so many people.
And it's human connection, right? It's not through a video, it's not through a screen or a stereo. Like, it is so much more impactful, right? And it's something that doesn't happen enough. And I know how hard it is to organize those things. That's why I don't do it, because I don't know how to do it. But it's definitely something that we need to make more accessible, right? Definitely more accessible. And I think it would go a long way. So definitely, we can, a lot to do, a lot of work to be done, but it's exciting. The thoughts are out there, right? So we're doing the right thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and so I wanted to end off the podcast episode with an advice segment. So,
Mhm.
what is one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self when you were first diagnosed?
Oh man, don't blame the world for what you're going through. It's not anybody else's fault. It's not your fault. It's just unfortunate what's going on. But like, once again, don't lose hope. Um, Start today, right? Don't wait for tomorrow to do the right thing. Start moving today. Start looking at the things you're putting into your body, right? Start looking at the way you're thinking about yourself and you're thinking about the disease. And just be more cognizant of everything that's happening in your life. And if you can be a little bit more aware and self-aware of your thoughts about yourself, you would probably be a lot better off. Like if I could be who I am today in my 17-year-old body, I would be a lot healthier, a lot happier, much sooner. Right. So that's what I give myself.
Thank you so much, Zac, for joining me on today's podcast episode. We talked about the power of fitness and how fitness really changed your life. Rather than you viewing your rheumatic disease as an inhibition to work out, you use your gym and your platform to empower others and also help yourself. We discussed mindset changes, your journey, and how you're able to continuously inspire others, as well as your support systems, including your friends, your family, and your rheumatologist. So everyone, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check out Zac's social media channels, which I will link down below. Thank you so much, Zac.
Thank you, Natasha. Take care.